Welcome to another episode of Not Your Average Lives. And I was so delighted to meet and interview Jackie Lynch. Jackie is a book author. She has an on-site clinic. She now does virtual sessions. She is a nutritional therapist, and she wasn't that until midlife. And she talks about her story and how she got into it, which was basically a 7-day spa, kind of a decompression uh, vacation, and she had no idea that the food she ate were going to change her life during that 7-day trip. So she talks about that, and she is from Notting Hill, or at least her clinic is in Notting Hill, England, which is one of my favorite places. And of course, the movie with Julia Roberts, many of us have seen. So she has so much knowledge, and I think this episode will really help anyone who is out there struggling with menopausal symptoms, some of which you might not even realize are from menopause. So she is an expert in her field, and she was a really, like I said, a delight to talk to. And I would love to introduce you to her. So let's get right to the episode, and you can meet Jackie Lynch. Welcome to another episode of Not Your Average Lives. And today, my guest is Jackie Lynch. And Jackie, you'll notice, has an accent. She comes from England, one of my favorite places on earth, and Notting Hill. And she sounds just like that movie. Jackie, I was really excited to interview her because she has a podcast, and I love all podcasters. And hers in particular is called The Happy Menopause. So you should check it out. But she's also a book author. She's quite busy, and she's super passionate about health. And so that's her focus, diet. And I thought it would be great to have her on. And she has a new book coming out in the fall. So I want to hear her kind of describe, because she comes from a business background. She had a regular job, and she started her this foray into health when she was 40, about midlife, and she's 54 now. So welcome to the podcast, Jackie.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yes, and we were testing the mic, so if I'm going to be kind of turning it up and down, so hopefully you won't have, as a listener, have to turn your volume up and down, but I'll try to do it for you. So anyways, go ahead and talk about how you got started on the new journey at age 40. I'd love for the listeners to hear your story.
Great. Okay. Well, I'm a nutritionist now, and I wasn't always a nutritionist because my first degree was French. And so when I graduated, I went to live in France. And in fact, I lived there for 13 years. And I was in sales and marketing and having a great time, loved the job. Moved back for a more senior role in, I think, 2000 to live in London. And then from there, just got sucked into the whole corporate thing in a way that I hadn't in France. I think the French are very good at work-life balance. And in London, everyone's just a bit mad and working ridiculous hours. I was traveling all the time. And I did love it, but it took its toll. And, there was coming a point where I thought, is this what I want to do for the rest of my life? I just thought, I've had a great time, but will it always be this great? Will I always feel this way about it? So I had a bit of a light bulb moment when I was 40, and I think it's probably a time of life where lots of women are sort of rethinking things anyway and looking for different things. And I went on a spa holiday, which was quite extraordinary, and it was formative for me because one of the big things about it is that you ate completely differently. It wasn't a radical regime. It wasn't a fast or anything like that. It was essentially alcohol and caffeine free and wheat and dairy free. And in fact, I didn't even notice it was wheat and dairy free until about the Wednesday, because the food was so great. Someone just happened to mention it, and I realized I hadn't read the small print, but it was great. And from there, I started to look into some of the nutritionists who had been resident and supporting us through that. And they all seemed to have the same qualification, something called a DIP ion, and I didn't know what that was. So I looked it up, and I found that ion stood for the Institute for Optimum Nutrition in Richmond, London. And I looked at it, I read the course, and I thought, that's what I want to do next. So it all happened really quickly. Within the space of a couple of months, I'd told my boss, I'd handed my notice in, I'd been accepted on the course, and I think that all started in the April. By September, I was walking into my first chemistry class, and that's how quickly it happened.
That's really awesome. I have a question about, did you have an interest in like health and fitness, or not fitness, but health and diet before that? Or like, were you overweight? Were you always conscious about how you looked, and what was kind of, what were you like what was the before Jackie like? And was that, a
Yeah,
lot of people, the reason why I ask is because a lot of people are led to those things because of, they want to lose weight.
yeah, yeah. I think it's a really great question. And I remember in my very first seminar, actually, we had to go round the room and say why we started the course. And so many of the women, because it was all women in my group, were saying things like, oh, well, I was recovering from cancer, or I had chronic fatigue syndrome, or I had this or that. And I thought, oh dear, I haven't had any of those. I've always been very healthy. And it got to my turn, and I said, well, I've always really liked because I have. And I think one of the reasons I loved France so much is that they really care about food and cooking, and they take it really seriously. And, you can talk about a dressing or a type of tomato for hours, and it's a proper philosophical discussion. So I remember when I moved back to London being really shocked at just how the supermarkets were filled with ready meals and sort of quick fixes. And I had, well, for years been cooking from scratch. So I suppose I've always been interested in food in that respect, but I didn't really make that connection between food and health until that week where I rolled up to this spa, and I wasn't ill because I've got a strong constitution, but I was very tired and very stressed. And honestly, I think by about 4 days in, I had an injection of energy. I felt like a completely different woman. I remember we were in the Atlas Mountains, and we had to fly back via Casablanca, which took about 7 hours. I can't remember why, but I do know it was a long journey home. And then I lived on the fourth floor without a lift, and I dragged my bag up. And normally after a business trip, I'd be exhausted. And I'll never forget, I walked in the room, threw my bag down, and said, right, now I'm going for a swim. I just thought, yeah, who is this woman? I couldn't believe the power of nutrition to make such a difference, even when, I hadn't been ill, but I was very, very, I think, overstretched and perhaps overwrought. So it was more that light bulb moment for me. And then the logic of looking back over how I'd done things in France, how I'd eaten, how food had always been much more important, that I think then sort of led me to that.
Yeah, and it was funny when you were talking about, what I always like to say, what comes to mind, because I feel like it's the universe telling me it needs to be said. But it reminds me of Julia
Julia
Child.
Child?
Yeah, Julia Child's story is that she didn't start cooking until she moved to France. And
Oh, really?
she married late in life. She was like 36 when she married her husband, and they got stationed. They both worked in the government, and they were stationed in France, and he was the chef in the family, and he taught her how to do French cooking. And so that's,
Amazing.
the roots came from, French cooking. So question, so you basically felt like this new person after you eliminated dairy and wheat, it sounds
And
like.
alcohol and caffeine.
and
I
and
haven't touched
alcohol.
caffeine since 2005.
That's amazing. So many people that are unable to do that. I had a really bad yeast problem last year, which I didn't even know about. And I went to the doctor like a few times, and I didn't even, they didn't know. They put me on antacid medicine, which wasn't a
Oh,
problem. And
yeah.
I was only, I'm now mad at myself for even taking it, because I was like, I don't have any acid reflux. And it wasn't until I ordered this book called The Plan. I don't know if you've heard of it, but one of the first things she says is before you start this plan, this menu that she designed, that basically allows you to test foods and see if you react to them or not. But one of the first things is a yeast test, and I discovered I had yeast through that. So I've been taking probiotics ever since. But that $10 book changed my life. So,
and did it help?
Oh yeah. I was stuck at a weight. I had gained about 10 pounds, and I had not been able to, and all the things that, I used to be a health and fitness coach. And so all the tools that I had weren't working that worked before. And so it was just really frustrating. So I was just stuck at this weight, and I didn't realize about yeast and what it can do and how it kind of holds you back and keeps you stuck. And so once I started taking probiotics, and then I went on her plan and started eliminating the foods that were really causing inflammation, which happens the older you get, the more sensitive you are to foods, some of which I was eating a lot that were on kind of my unhealthy list, as it turned out. But yeah, I lost 10 pounds immediately, and I've kept it off. So, and that was over the holidays. So tell me a little bit about your upcoming book. I'd love you to talk about that. I know you can, and we'll put it in the show notes. I know you can get on a wait list for it. So
yeah, absolutely. It's available to pre-order. Well, this book has been burning away inside me for a while. I mean, I've written a couple of other books, but this one was the one I really wanted to write. Because I think probably in the past 5 years or so, my nutrition clinic and my own personal interests have moved towards the menopause much more. Not least, of course, because that's where I'm at in life, and it's something I really understand. But also because I feel so frustrated that there just isn't the information out there. I mean, when a woman gets pregnant, she is bombarded with stuff. Half the time, stuff she doesn't even want to know about or hear about. But the information and the support systems are really there. But I think for women in midlife, it's just not the same. You're not taught about this stuff at school. Nobody tells you. You might hear the word menopause and think, oh, that's when your periods stop. But it's not like that. And that's the problem. And I think that one of the things I feel really passionate about is that time sort of in your late 40s, where your periods are probably still really regular, perhaps getting too regular for your liking and heavier. That's what happened to me. But many women struggle with issues like anxiety or fatigue or brain fog, and they've still got regular periods, and they don't understand, they don't make the connection with the menopause, or their doctor doesn't make that connection, or they're told they're too young, when actually those emotional symptoms absolutely are the sign, the early signs, because progesterone is usually at the root of that. And as your progesterone starts to become out of balance in your sort of mid-40s on average, that's when all that stuff kicks off. And then there are these poor women thinking, well, it can't be menopause. There must be something wrong with me. I'm going mad. It's early onset Alzheimer's. There's this, it's that. And I just thought we need to get some information out there. And so I was desperate to write this book to present the nutrition angle, not because I disagree with HRT, hormone replacement therapy. If people think that's right for them, then that's fine. But even if you are having it, the right nutrition, the right diet will make it work better. So it's a win-win to get your diet right.
Yeah, and HRT is
hormone replacement therapy.
Hormone replacement therapy.
So it's right. The estrogen, the estrogen patches or gels that women can have to restore that estrogen.
Yeah, I used the patch for I want to say maybe 3 or 4 years in my mid-50s. And the main reason I did that, and I did a very, very low dosage, I think I did like 0.05. But the reason why I did it was because, and I have no breast cancer in my family. And in fact, apparently the patch that I was on is there's like, you're less likely to get breast cancer for some reason. So yeah, I checked that. So definitely that's the thing to be careful of. A lot of women who have had breast cancer can't do HRT. But I took it because my hot flashes were so bad,
right, that
I could not, I was waking up like 4 times a night, and I was so exhausted that I was like, I can't survive like this. So that was the choice I made for myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I think it's really important that women have the choice, that women are empowered to know the facts, whether it's about the hormone replacement therapy, the nutrition, the lifestyle, so that you can sort of make your own, build your own menopause approach, if you like, and do what's right for you. But what I found really frustrating is that a lot of this information isn't there, or women are immediately given the hormone therapy and not even encouraged to look at other options that might be supportive for them. And one of the things that really struck me, Laurie, and honestly, I couldn't believe it, is how difficult it was to get this book published. Because I thought, this is my third book. I've proven I can write. Um, I've got a profile here, but I was told repeatedly it was a niche subject. Love the idea, but it's a niche subject. Um, and this was also not even, I can't even blame the guys. It wasn't from male publishing directors. They were all women saying it, and I couldn't believe it. And so I was so happy. I went back to my original publisher because I'd switched publishers between books, and they were really happy to do it. And I'm so grateful to them because it just made me so angry to hear that.
Yeah, because I mean, heck, there's the baby boomers. There's a lot of baby boomers, and we're all hitting that age where we're all senior citizens and we're all going through this menopause journey. So it's a very, very big niche. It's not a
Well, it
small niche.
is. Absolutely. And I mean, again, think about all those pregnancy books. Not every woman gets pregnant, but every woman goes through the menopause. So
That
come
is
on.
so, so true. Yes. And you don't have kids, as you said. So
Mm.
yeah, you're, that is right on. I see that. Uh, so one of your books talks about a 10-day diet thing. And I was just curious, I'm always looking for things for my listeners that can help them. So can you
Okay,
describe to me what that is and how it helps?
sure. It's called Vavavoom, the 10-day energy diet. I didn't want to call it the 10-day energy diet because I don't like the word diet. I'm all about putting in food rather than taking out food, and being nutritious and supportive. But a book's got to sell, and the publisher in the end has their say. So I think of it as a 10-day energy program because in my nutrition clinic, people usually come to see me for a specific reason, and it's rarely because of low energy. It will usually be because they're stressed, they're struggling to lose weight, they've got digestive issues, they're feeling hormonal, they're struggling with the menopause. But I ask them to complete a form with all the information I need from them. And the second thing they always put on that form underneath why are you here or what's troubling you is low energy. They just don't have the energy they used to. And honestly, the number of times I've heard people say, oh, I don't have the same energy as I used to. It must be my age. And when you're hearing that from a 29-year-old woman, something's wrong. I mean, we shouldn't be saying that until we're in our 80s because we're all generally, life's changed a lot when you think of our parents at the age we are now. We're generally fitter, stronger, more active. There's just, life is different. And so usually, assuming there's no medical condition, it's going to be all about diet and lifestyle. So that's why I wrote the book, because I thought, we all need a bit of vavavoom in our life. So the 10-day energy diet is a way of rethinking. It's a little bit what happened to me during that spa, although that was a 7-day program. But because that proved to me in a short space of time how you can reset things, doesn't mean you have to follow this for the rest of your life. I'm not still wheat and dairy free, but it just helped me recalibrate and look at food in a different way and really understand the foods that can slow you down and make you sluggish, and the ones that can give you a shot in the arm and make you really feel energized. So it's a modular diet. I've got two options. There's one for the people who are really exhausted, and I don't want it to be too scary, so that they're feeling, on top of feeling exhausted, they've got to make these radical changes that are just too much for them. And then I've got a sort of super boost program for people who are in pretty good shape but feel like a bit of extra oomph. So you can choose the one that's right for you.
Mhm.
And I always tend to think with any woman going through the menopause, go for the lower one. Look after yourself. Be kind to yourself. we're always so busy being kind to everyone else, I think, that we forget to be kind to ourselves. So I think it's a great little book. It's very practical. It's got some useful recipes in. It's got a very simple food program to follow over that 10-day period, and people feel better after it.
Yeah, I would love to get your perspective on exercise, because I found a lot of people go for the exercise and they think that's what my solution is going to be, is exercise, but they don't realize you don't, you can, if I had the choice, knowing what I know now, exercise or diet, I would spend my time working on my nutrition, because they say, and it's a saying, you can't out exercise a bad diet. And you can still feel like crap. You can exercise and still feel like crap if your diet is bad.
Yeah.
And so I used to have the mentality of, oh, I'll eat that cookie or I'll eat that bowl of ice cream and then I'll do my exercise.
Yeah.
And I did a program a couple of years ago, maybe it's like 3 years ago, where it was more plating and focusing on a lot more vegetables and, a lot more water, and and you didn't really measure. You just kind of looked at your plate and the portion sizes of,
Yeah.
You just filled your plate with mostly vegetables and less protein and carbs, but and really great ways to make vegetables. But I actually got abs, and it was no exercise. She said, no exercise, do this for 30 days at least before you reintroduce exercise. And so what people, I don't think, realize is the value of good nutrition.
Mm.
And my problem before I got started I got in the best shape of my life at age 55. So I was very, very passionate about what I was doing. And that's what I fell into the health and fitness coaching area. But I couldn't poop.
Right.
So I was like a distended stomach, looked like I had
Mm.
what they call it, food belly, because I couldn't poop. I pooped like it was a good week if I pooped twice in 1 week.
Wow.
So I love the poop emoji. It's like one of my favorite emojis, because I am regular now, but it's water, and it's making sure you have the right nutrients in your system, because some things, if you're all carbs and you're going to get and protein, you're going to get stopped up. So that's my little tidbit. What do you think about exercise and the, people kind of really focusing more on exercise than nutrition?
Well, I think people need to be careful because and I know this from my own experience as, as an executive woman who drove herself really hard. I think there are a lot of women out there really driving themselves hard, and exercise is no exception. In the same way as they work hard, they exercise hard. And the trouble is that that can put a huge strain on your adrenal glands, which manage your stress response. Now, for women of our age, that's a real issue because, Mother Nature's cunning plan post-menopause, when the ovaries stop producing estrogen, is for the adrenal glands to produce what we need to keep us fit and well and to avoid all the horrible symptoms that can come with that drop of estrogen. But the adrenal glands also produce the stress hormones. So, if you're generating large amounts of stress, then your body can't produce the estrogen you need as well. So your menopause symptoms are going to be worse. And then because you have a tendency to be someone who drives yourself, you'll think, oh, I need to exercise more. So I think for a lot of women in midlife, it's about looking, first of all, absolutely get the diet right, but just looking at the stresses in your life. And is exercise actually part of that? Are you constantly doing high intensity training and driving yourself when you might benefit from doing a bit of yoga as well separately? Not saying you can't, you lose your spinning class if you love it, but it's not all about really, really pumping yourself up, because that then pumps up the stress hormones. And stress hormones, they're going to muck everything up from a hormonal perspective. But the other thing that will happen is if your stress hormones are continually high, then it will encourage the body to store food as abdominal fat rather than processing it as energy. So you'll get that little belly, even when you think, well, I'm so fit, I work out so much. And the other thing it can do, which is really unfair, is it encourages the body to burn muscle instead of fat when you're exercising. So again, you could be pushing yourself really hard and actually overtraining and overstressing your body. So I really think people need to focus on calming things down a little bit, looking much harder at supportive foods, getting the balance right between the protein, the fiber, so the vegetables, the whole grain food, and then making sure that you're not overdoing the sugary stuff, the junk stuff, and thinking, oh well, as you say, um, I'll burn it all off in my next class. Because actually, you might benefit from a yoga class where you're doing some breathing, bringing that stress down.
Yeah, that's great advice. And water is so, like, you're drinking water right now. And I was just going to
I am.
say, water is so underrated. Like, people are like, well, I can't drink water. Well, water is the best medicine. And a lot of people, I think, who are on medicine, all they need is water. I mean, that's like an exaggeration a lot, but so there's so many symptoms. Like, my husband he'll say, I have a really bad headache. And I
Yeah,
was like, how much water have you had today? You know? And
yeah,
then
yeah.
he'll say, I have a really bad stomach ache. And I'll say, I used to get really bad stomach aches. And what I've learned is that when I drink, if I have a really bad stomach ache, really the last thing you want to do is put something, you don't want to ingest anything really. But if
Mm,
I force myself to drink a big, huge glass of water, my stomach ache goes away.
yeah.
So a lot of these symptoms that you're getting, just a big glass of water, if you chug it down, will solve the problem. And a headache is a sign of dehydration. So yeah, how much do you drink? A lot of water, I
Oh,
assume?
I do. I always have done. I'm one of those people who naturally like to drink a lot of water. And I know it's not the case for everyone. My sister, for example, gets stressed out at a glass of water like that and thinks, oh, I can't drink it. So I know it's difficult
She
for
was just, so
people.
people don't see, the listeners didn't see that, but she held up her quarter glass of water and said her sister is, doesn't like that much water. Yeah, there's people like
Yeah.
that.
So I think the thing to remember is that the symptoms of dehydration are actually super similar to the symptoms of the menopause, because if you're struggling with brain fog, fatigue, headaches, joint pain, struggling to sleep, anxiety, poor concentration, poor memory, all of those are also symptoms of dehydration. So just sort of think to yourself, what am I doing? Am I getting enough water? It's tricky to say exactly how much we should be having, because it will depend on your build, your age, your level of physical activity, the temperature of your environment. It was really hot here in the UK last week, and I was getting through liters of the stuff. But it's typically raining today and a lot cooler, so I'm not drinking as much. But I think the best way to know if you're having enough hydration is to look at the color of your pee. It should basically be a pale straw color most of the time. If it's consistently dark, then you need to be drinking more. And if it's completely clear, you're probably overhydrating, and that can disrupt your mineral balance and cause kidney problems. So obviously, first thing in the morning, it will be darker because you won't have had a drink for several hours. And if you neck a bottle of water after exercising, then the next time you go to the toilet, it's probably going to be clear. But over the sort of course of 24 hours, look for that pale straw color, because that's what's really going to be what you're looking for. I mean, for most of us, it's probably about 1.5 liters of water. But if that sounds too scary, because as I said, there are lots of people who freak out at the mere idea of that. Remember that fruit and vegetables are packed with water. Remember that you could drink herbal teas instead. You could drink cordial mixed with water, or have sparkling water if you find normal water dull. And if you're someone who just forgets, then download one of the many hydration apps that are out there, because that can help you keep on track.
There was, that's a little loud, but there was a natural water flavor enhancer that was recommended to me. So it would be a great place to suggest it. It's called Stir,
Oh, yeah.
STUR. Yeah. And you can get that on Amazon, but
Mm.
people, I like plain water, and then you can, I usually squeeze lemon in it, and you can put other fruit in it too. But I was just thinking a good title for this podcast episode would be, if your pee is yellow, this is a must listen episode too. So,
Oh,
no,
tempting.
yeah. So I was wondering, because a lot of my guests are online business owners,
Right.
and I help people create online businesses. And so you have a podcast, so you're online in a sense. And I think of podcasts as probably the new age blog, because
Yeah.
blogs now are more video based or audio based. So what else do you do online? It sounds like you have a clinic, so you're face to face with people a lot. So what else do you do
Yeah.
online?
Yeah, so I launched my nutrition clinic in 2010, and that's sort of the core of what I do, really, supporting people through their health issues through food. Um, and for a long time, it was face to face. And I still do have a clinic in Notting Hill, although not at this precise moment because everything's closed. Um, but I have for a long time run remote support, so I'll do my clinic sessions via Zoom, for example. It's always nice to see people face to face, I think, because you get a much better idea, particularly with weight management. I think weighing and measuring people in person rather than relying on the individual is probably a bit more successful. But lockdown, I mean, we've been in lockdown in the UK since the middle of March. And so my entire clinic has moved online since then. And actually, although I was always a bit, does it work as well? I think it's worked really well. And it's encouraged people to come to me who wouldn't have because they thought, well, I can't travel to London. And now I'm working with people sort of across the UK and also internationally. So it's actually worked very well for me.
Yeah. I think that is a really good way of making, like, looking at the glass half full, since you're just talking about water. But like the pandemic, so many people are think, oh, all of the problems that it's brought, which it has, but it also has brought opportunities to people. And if you can take advantage of the opportunities and look at it as like, you know, either a lesson or a gift, then and a lot of people, it's made them kind of get out of their comfort zone and do things in a
Yeah.
different way, and that's actually been a good thing, I think.
Yeah, I think it's been quite a period of reflection. I think a lot of people have spent time thinking about how they might change their life, whether they might move from the city or whether they might work more from home and spend more time with family. I think it's been quite an interesting time in that respect, with people thinking about doing things differently. And a lot of employers have always been very sniffy about people working from home, thinking, well, they won't do their job. But I think now realizing that actually it can work. So I think it's going to revolutionize the workplace, actually.
So I am so happy to have had this conversation, because I think it's going to help a lot of people who are experiencing menopause and the symptoms. And so I would really like to hear your best advice as we close, to somebody who is really suffering from these symptoms that they might not even realize are from menopause, like you said, brain fog and really low energy and just not feeling like their old self. That's the best way I think I can describe it, is I think a lot of people get to like 50 and they're like, where's the old me?
Yeah.
Why do I feel like this? And so what would be your best advice? Like, they listen to this and the next step is going to be what?
Okay. I'd say three things if I'm allowed.
Yeah.
Um, First of all, I think be kind to yourself. Don't be too hard on yourself. We women drive ourselves hard. We're very busy looking after everyone else and not looking after ourselves. Whether it's your children, your elderly relatives, your job that you love above all else, whatever it is, we put everything else first. So I think this is your time to put yourself first. It really is, and you will benefit from doing that. So first of all, be kind to yourself. I think, secondly, seek help and talk about it. I have been really amazed by how being frank about my menopause and talking about it to friends and then being open online and webinars and via my podcast has encouraged other people to say, oh, I have that too. And it's just like that thing, when they always say, don't they, in events, don't be scared to ask the question, because you can be sure that at least half the people in the room want to ask it, but they're too scared. And it's that feeling of actually all these women of this age are out there and feeling rubbish, but being too embarrassed to mention it because either they feel ashamed, which is awful, or they think they're going mad and they think it's not the menopause. So seek help. Seek help. Tell your partner what's going on. Tell your friends what's going on. Tell your physician what's going on. Get help, because there's loads of help out there. And then the third thing, which is very much close to my heart as a nutritionist, would be to say, really look hard at your diet. Just getting two simple things right. If you remember nothing else, remember this. If you just eat protein and fiber with every meal and snack, that'll keep your blood sugar balanced. It'll stop those cravings. It'll help with your weight management. It'll stop overproduction of stress hormones. So when I say protein, I'm thinking things like meat, fish, eggs, but also lentils, chickpeas, beans, nuts, seeds, quinoa, all great sources of protein. And then fiber would be vegetables, whole grains like wholemeal bread, brown rice, oats, and then fruits with an edible skin because they tend to be higher in fiber. So a combination of those, fiber and protein, every meal and snack, you'll feel like a new woman.
This has been wonderful. Thank you so much for being a guest on my podcast. It was a delight getting to know you, and we'll look for your book. And what is your website, just so people, if they want to follow up and look at the other stuff you have?
My website is well, so WELL -well-well.co.uk. So WellWellWell. And on social media, I'm at WellWellWell UK.
And we'll put that in the show notes, of course. Yeah, I was like, when I first saw that, I was like, well. That's thinking. I was like, well, what have we here? So all kinds of goodies. All right. Thank you, Jackie, so much.
It's been my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for tuning into the Not Your Average Lives podcast. If you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe on iTunes if you have an Apple device. You can find free resources and learn what else I have going on at the moment that might interest you on my website at notyouraverage.grandma.com. You can also find me on Instagram or Facebook at Not Your Average Grandma. If you liked this episode, it would make my heart so happy if you could leave me a 5-star rating. You can also add a review to let me know what you like about this podcast, which will help spread the word about it to others who need a little midlife inspiration. As always, be you, listen to your inner voice, and focus on reigniting that lost spark so you can start living your own Not Your Average life.